Tadhg Leader. Ted Roosevelt did just say, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, but where the doer of deeds could have done them better." Okay, he also says, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Obviously, you have born the leader kicking brand into something that's kind of really tangible, something that's all over social media. We're here on Enter the Arena podcast, an LK podcast, and we're talking to you today. But one of the few things we've seen, like the exact same theme throughout all our athletes so far, delving into their mind, is that they've seen you, and they've seen you in social media, and they've seen LK, or they've come across it somehow, growing the brand. So you hear kind of a quote like that, and you are who you are. I think we all know that you have kind of gotten these guys into this arena. You've gotten them as far as they can go to this point. How does it feel like, just from that perspective, before we talk about you, how does it feel like to be Tadhg Leader of leader kicking? Literally, I don't even like to say opening a door, but you've kind of built the door, you've built a portal where previously there was nothing available to these Irish athletes to get them to the NFL.
Well said, I guess. Yeah, like that was, I guess, to be honest, just listening to you there, through this process, there hasn't been a whole lot of pause and reflection, because it's been bloody moving fast, and it's been going phenomenally well, but it's been go, 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 go all the time, which has been really enjoyable, really challenging along the way. But for me, I guess, once I discovered the sport of American football, I knew I was passionate about kicking. Knew that, whether it was Gaelic football, rugby, or American football, didn't doubt that. But I was retiring from my own career, my second career in American football, and I guess I was looking for a bit of purpose to what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, and said, you know what, I care about this. I feel like I have a good skill set to do this. So we started, and now to be where it's at a year and a half in, you know, with the previous guests, all Division 1 college players getting an NFL opportunity. Yeah, truly try and reflect is a bit mind blowing, but also you just want it to be the norm and keep going. So I don't know. I think I'll reflect more deeply on it. Oh geez, I don't know when I should do that.
Well, we're right in the cusp here of the NFL Combine, one of the biggest sporting events on the planet. Okay, it's held in Indianapolis every year. Everyone knows exactly what it is. Some of the best athletes in the world are there all the time. The chances, the odds of you getting invited or making it, or even getting to the draft, or even getting drafted, are minuscule. Mm-hmm. You have sometimes you've made a program where there's 3 Irish guys going there to compete, and they're already, there's 4 Irish guys, there's 3 GA players, my apologies, already going there to compete at the absolute highest level, and they're already elite athletes. Like, I guess, why is it taking this long for something like this to happen? Like,
as we know, the kicking talents here, I say to people, as part of our DNA, as part of our heritage, we kick a ball off the ground through uprights in Gaelic football and rugby. We do something similar. Obviously, punting, we drop it out of our hand in Gaelic football and rugby. So the talent has always been here. Just no one is, I guess, to my knowledge, kind of connected all the dots, created a program with clear direction as to how this works. Because this pathway, as you know, is bloody confusing. It's very traditional meaning obviously more so from the American side of things, college, blah, blah, blah.
Baffling, confusing, and powerful, like the AA say.
Yeah, well, man, it's been, but I guess for me, it's just been trying to take all my learnings, and there's a lot of them bloody tough bloody learnings, but I went through them, figured them out, and how to better prop it up for this bunch of lads. And thankfully I've kind of built the structure, but they've been the quality that's made it work. So yeah, it's been class. It's been pinch yourself moments, a lot of pinch yourself moments, especially with the the lads getting the chance with this NFL program, or even watching, we were chatting to Ross in the previous episode, like getting to see him play Division 1 college football, his opening game in San Diego. Yeah, like I guess once or twice I stopped and kind of pinched myself and was like, Jesus, this actually worked.
And I mean, that's not just so we were even kind of veering off just the International Pathway program and getting these guys into Indianapolis. You're also getting, arguably more, depending on how you look at it, arguably more of a benefit is getting young kids, young Irish athletes who are like super talented, literally like an educational opportunity for a chance for a college education that's worth six figures in the US. We're talking like all board paid for, all food paid for, all education paid for, on top of like, you know, kind of like spending money / allowances, that term that they use for that. And on top of that, playing in stadiums, like as we talked to Ross, you know, 30,000 people, 40,000 people, 50,000 people in some of these stadiums, and beyond. So like, that's put you in the spot, but what, like, that was the goal from the
That was the goal. Yeah. So I guess if I'm deviating a bit, but that was the goal. That was the goal of Leader Kicking. Was I saw the power of what a scholarship in America is for someone's like life, you know, nothing to do with professional sports, just like how impactful that can be, how you can get like, you know, these top class educations through just banging a ball down the pitch or lobbing it through the upright, something we just do casually for the crack in Ireland. So it's like, well, if we can bring all this together, how bloody impactful will that be? And how class would it be, you know, for all the perks you just talked about, the experiences you get? So that was the goal. Never did I think, or what you know, we're talking about a second ago about the NFL and the IPP stuff and boys going to the combine. Did I think that we'd be doing that? Maybe in like 10 years, hopefully. Truly, that was not really on the radar in the first 5 years at least. But thankfully, on the back of the success and growth of year one, these other unbelievable doors have opened up. So like, yeah, it's kind of morphed into something pretty big, pretty fast. And like, long may that continue, really.
I mean, you just said it there that like Irish people are kind of maybe perfect for this type of sport. And I couldn't agree with you anymore, because we have got thousands and thousands of reps. And I remember talking about this previously on a podcast like years ago, and I kind of began my own pursuit into professional football, deviating from rugby and some other sports that I played. We are natural leg athletes. We get loads of reps in our legs, and you know, the old like 10,000 hours of practice, that old quote that this makes it perfect, kind of seems to ring true like perfectly for an Irish athlete, especially like whatever about any other sports. And I know, you know, one of your things that you've found is that amongst the two sports, like football and American football and Gaelic football, are the only two sports in the world where you kick a ball from the ground up in between posts. So is that something that you kind of found, that like, you know, why aren't Irish athletes kind of being found this way, because they are like perfectly set up for it?
I mean, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was at a podcast launch about Neil O'Donoghue, the last Irish man to play in the NFL in the 70s and into the 80s. And what was his story? An Irish lad that played Gaelic football and soccer, went on a soccer scholarship to America, discovered kicking American football, ended up going to a huge college, playing his first game in front of 80-odd thousand, goes on to have like a 10-year NFL career. And I was like listening to this podcast and was like, how didn't anyone kind of around these junctures of this journey and be like, this makes sense. Maybe, you know, we should do more of this. But obviously it just didn't happen for whatever reason. No one kind of went about it. But like, clearly, it's always been there. It's always been there. And
then I guess kind of your own background then, like let alone Neil O'Donoghue, but your own background is kind of heavily laden with kicking.
Yeah.
You came up in a rugby background, so I know you kind of played with Connacht. So do you want to kind of start from there and see where that kind of bug began in your own journey?
The bug began with Santa Claus. Literally, the bug began with Santa Claus, reaching out to Santa, asking for a new pair of Preds and a kicking tee. Christmas Day, I've parents, two brothers. Christmas Day, we went up to Galwegians Rugby Club and we'll just go kicking for an hour or two. Like, that's just kicking a ball off the tee over the bar. That's what we did. And that was a Christmas tradition for many years. We got to like 14 or 15. Eventually, I found out the truth about Santa, but we got to 14 or 15. And I remember like my dad putting 50 quid on a bet with me, basically saying, I bet you can't bang it over from the halfway line, and just ripped it over and like loved it. It was just like crack. And obviously when you're good at it, you enjoy something, you invest more time into it.
Did you get the €50?
He actually, don't know if he actually paid me, to be honest. He's a bit tight.
No.
Yeah, exactly. No. But yeah, that's like, it was always there. Fortunately, as I said, two brothers, a bit of space at the house, grew up. Like, Gaelic football was actually my preferred sport up until kind of rugby. Around 15, 16 is when the Connacht Academy rugby stuff started. So that's when I kind of went down that route. But just loved kicking. My mates go kicking for the crack, for the soccer, whatever. So like, I always had a good boot. And then rugby just became the pathway for me to kind of pursue it for an option to obviously make a career out of it. So yeah, like it's truly been like a joy for me all my life. I just wish I discovered American football earlier, to be honest.
Yeah, so you're involved in Connacht Rugby, you get involved in the academy, and is your brother in the academy as well at this point?
Yeah, Dara is a year and a bit younger than me. So no, Dara was a bit of a late bloomer, but he probably didn't get in. Like we both left school the same year, and I would have signed for the academy then, but he would have been a year or two after me, even though we're the kind of same age. He was a late bloomer. Even he went on to do great things, but
So what a year are we talking about roughly here?
2012.
Because in 2012 you're involved in Connacht Rugby, everything is going relatively well for Tadhg Leader. So what happens after that then?
So I think I had 3 years there. Loving my first 2 years. Playing mostly with.
And now you're living in Galway as well.
So I'm living at home now. Yeah.
Not exactly like you're very far away from the hub of Connacht Rugby. How far away?
Literally 5 minutes down the road, so it's sound. And you're not being paid a whole lot when you're in the academy, so living at home is grand. But did that, and then for those 2 years, bloody loved it, and like was tracking well, developing, really happy. At the end of my second year, got a really bad ankle injury, and then got a really bad shoulder injury, which reconstruction, surgery, things like that. So that was kind of my last year there, and it wasn't, to be honest, I hated it. I've said this publicly multiple times now. I despise is too strong, but I did not enjoy the sport. I grew up dreaming of playing sport professionally. Last year, hated it. Really fell in love with rugby, and I thought I was kind of done for good.
Was that mainly because of the pains you were kind of going through, or was it just kind of the frustration of trying to get over these injuries, or was it competition? Like what was kind of driving it to just like kind of be run out of the sport?
It was my performance. So our ankle was end of year 2 through the summer. A new head coach came for the first team. I remember trying to be available for training because going into my last year of contract, ankle unfortunately still follows me to this day. Never really kind of healed, but it got some cortisone injections, so trying to mask it. 2013 maybe now, roughly. I got some cortisone to mask that, so you get through pre-season, but it was sore. And then not long after that, so I was managing, but like it was tough. Say for example, if I had signed a 3-year contract, I would have definitely been much more upfront and say, hey, this needs to be properly fixed. Like,
yeah,
I'm in trouble here, but.
So you felt the pressure to actually not kind of play down your injury so that you could hopefully play up, then get a longer contract.
Yeah, or just like secure the next gig, the next contract.
And you're up against like stiff competition at this point. I think Jack Carty's involved in the lineup. It was Robbie Henshaw was there.
They're
two guys very
they're
close.
Young bucks, isn't it? There's also like there's like then both of them have gone on to have phenomenal careers. But yeah, they're like kind of young lads, and there's obviously just layers within that, like more seniority guys as well. So there's like it's a hierarchy, I suppose, right? But that was that. And then I remember my shoulder injury came out for the first time. I remember laying on the ground in the grass looking up being like, damn, something's wrong here. Turned out it was totally out of joint. And didn't get it operated on. Did rehab for like 3 months with my physio, misdiagnosed clearly. Did 3 months of physio, and then I tried to come back. And this point now I was into my last 6 months of my contract. So I was trying to play, and like I was useless. I was like just.
And are you still playing out half at this point? I know we haven't talked
10, 12.
Out half or 12. We've done both. But
yeah, 10, 12.
So obviously getting a lot of contact as well.
Yeah, but I was just fearful. I couldn't move particularly well, but I was fearful of contact, which rugby isn't the best sport to be playing. And my performances were just things that I was naturally really good at, like kicking, even like that diminished. And it was just it really just was sick of it. I remember sometimes like just trying to find a way to even get out of training at the end. Like, was that bad? I just didn't want to train, didn't want to be there. And I just kind of wanted to escape. Because keep in mind, we started when we were 15, they brought in A-levels, full-time training all summers. Not just like, guys train maybe 2 times a week. We were in there Monday through Friday, 8, 9 a.m. first report till 3 p.m., 15.
Well,
so I remember being like 21, 2, and I was like, God, I'm just ready to get the hell out of there. I was just sick of it.
Just overload from a young age, I think.
Look, at the time, I loved it. At the time, absolutely thought this was class. That's when I kind of stopped playing Gaelic football, actually, and hurling. But it was in hindsight, yes. When I got to 21, 22, then I was like, I've been here for bloody ages. I just kind of wanted to do something new. And also, as I said, I wasn't performing well enough. I would have, like, you know, I didn't warrant still being there at that point. Also, didn't really want to be. I didn't want to be there as a result of all the performance stuff. So that was when I left there and I went to Boston first time, just amateur rugby. That was like the biggest release. And I just went there. There was a chance to just play for the crack. My body still wasn't great, but I just wanted out. The officer would pay your flights and give you a couple of quid. And I was like, yeah, gone. And I remember my coach, who'd been with me all the time in Connacht, he knew I wasn't myself. He knew I wasn't happy. And he was like, look, we'll support you wherever we can. And that ended up being my first venture to America, pre-Italy, before venture number 2.
Right. Okay. So your first taste of America. Now, I don't think you knew at that point how much back and forth you would actually be to the America, as you know, you've probably heard about previously with the adventures of Ross and Delta, you know, or Ross and Lee, kind of going back and forth. But let's talk a little bit about what kind of happened then, because I think your journey kind of through it also relates to like a lot of the perseverance you've seen from some of the athletes that enter the arena. So you're kind of in a bit of a bad nick. Maybe you're kind of recovering. Maybe you're kind of licking your wounds from Connacht, and a call comes from Italy.
Yeah. So I remember shouting to one of the lads. I had properly been to college because I was like, sure, I'm just going to play rugby and this is my career. You know, just immature, didn't focus on college at all. So I hadn't been to university. It's like, I loved America. So I said, I'd go to college in the US. And then my agent called me and said, there's a gig in Italy. Do you fancy it? Keep in mind, my shoulder was still goosed. But I was kind of like, sounds half decent. I was always keen to travel and move. I was always keen to go try things. So I said yes to that. Went to Italy, went out to outside Venice. But like I remember,
and you kind of by yourself as the only player down there.
Yeah.
Or?
That was I remember going over there. Yeah, by myself. I remember going over there on the first night. You know, getting picked up by my agent. The agent on the Italian side kind of dropped me off at my house, which is like some sort of farmhouse in like rural Italy. I remember just sitting down to eat like just dry rice and like kind of pretty dry leaves, and it was just like, oh, what the hell? Like, I won't curse, but I was not. It just kind of, the reality dawned on me. I was like, this is different. And obviously I didn't speak any Italian. That's not surprising, is it? So that was my kind of first time though, really been thrown out of my comfort zone and not really knowing what the crack was.
In a good way, or you just kind of feeling sorry for yourself at this point?
In that first night, to be honest, I was thinking, Jesus, this might literally the first night, this might not be a good shout here. Like, you probably should have maybe just taken care of your body and gone to college and forgot about sports. But then you kind of, I don't know, day 2 you wake up, we had a swimming pool at the house, had a little tiny little car. I remember like driving around and I was like, this could be grand, we'll see where this takes me. So eventually then just like you kind of like, you made your bed, like get on with it, maybe 22, 23-ish. So get on with it. And that was my first kind of real sense of independence and like figure it out, like go figure it out. Tried to, but unfortunately I remember doing like rehab in the gym for my shoulder and it just slipped out.
Oh, wow.
I was just in the corner. I just like collapsed over and I was up way forward. I eventually learned how to put it in myself. Got this bad that I remember I had to go to the physio. At the time, kineso tape was used. Still being used, but at the time, everyone has had them and it also just looked cool and people's hamstrings and stuff. I remember my physio had.
Yeah, it's not very supportive, just so we can put that out there. Yeah. There's a myth kind of going around for a while that kinesiology tape was actually like quite good at supporting joints, which it definitely is not.
I had to get mine done before going to bed. I used to chat to the physio. There was a lad I knew and he would literally strap it for me, you know, that evening, and then, or just to put the tape on, and then I'd go to bed. Unfortunately, it literally came out of my sleep a few times, which is not good. Anyway, long story short, bad investment for the Italian team because I was pretty poor. Because again, rugby is not a good sport to play when you're afraid to be touched. So
no, okay. So at some point, I'm really hoping you've fixed your shoulder and fixed your ankle before your next venture.
I did.
So what happens after Italy? So Italy didn't really work out. I know they asked you to kick, pass, relax, maybe avoid contact a little bit. That didn't really work. So you go back, try and fix your shoulder. Is that right?
Get it reconstructed finally, yeah.
So you go through surgery in Ireland.
Go through surgery in Ireland.
So back home in Galway.
Yeah.
Was there a bit of like Philadelphia, here I come, back where I started from? You know, back to exactly back to point A. What a waste of time in Italy. No,
because at that point I was like, Tadhg, you need to go to college and move on from sports. Okay. So I was ready for that. And I hadn't had the crack really in college when I'd been in college. So I had a chance to go to the university in the US. Sports management degree, was into that. Didn't really, academically, I wasn't that inclined.
Kind of a bachelor type of thing or diploma? Or?
Bachelor, yeah, a 4-year degree. 4-year degree. So it was a rugby. So I was done professional sports, but the scholarship, I had to play rugby when I was recovered and good to go. So I got a scholarship, went out there. More drama continued, played like 2 games for them. And then I was deemed ineligible. It was because of my sporting background professionally previously. You kind of play collegiate sports if you played pro sports. So I ended up then, being told, okay, you're here in a scholarship to play rugby, but I was deemed ineligible. So then I was a bit of a nervous moment that I was going to be turfed out because they pulled their scholarship. But fortunately, because rugby isn't an NCAA sport like American football, my scholarship, it was for rugby, but it was worded as academic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was saving grace there. So thankfully the academic standards weren't through the roof. So I was able to maintain that. So I ended up getting to keep my scholarship for the whole time. But the silver lining of all that is that's when I discovered coaching, and I discovered, I'm actually half decent at getting a message across and like helping improve players. So that's when the seed was planted from a coaching perspective. When I got to coach a team, good fun. We won a national championship. They'd never done that. So that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was cool. That was good crack as well.
And what school was that?
That was at Lindenwood University, and I was also coaching a club in St. Louis as well. So that was
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, yeah, random old spot, but
and probably your first introduction as well, or like first good proper look, I imagine, at American football.
No,
or anything like that. None.
No, I didn't.
What you played there?
Did right in front of me. Didn't look at it, especially when I lost the Scottish or lost the rugby. Like, why didn't I do? I would have wished I put 2 and 2 together there and then, and say, I start kicking American football. I even went down to the pitch one day and kicked a few for the crack and was kicking back like 50 yards. And just left and never did it again. What was I thinking? It wasn't, obviously. So that was I don't have that many regrets, but that would have been a sensible move back then. But I didn't do it. So I didn't really. American football didn't come up to COVID.
Yeah, and so
like 5 years later.
Not to accelerate through that, because these 5 years, are very interesting in my mind.
Up and around.
From what I've heard. Yeah, so professional rugby comes to the US kind of in a proper light finally, in the form of the MLR. Somehow, Tadhg, and it's interesting, we talked to Ross and we talk about his magical moment being in San Diego for his first game. You're there, Lee's there, it's like, I've made it. And what was your first team in the MLR?
San Diego, but it almost wasn't, because I told you I was sick. I wasn't enjoying rugby, like at a professional level.
So how do we bridge this gap here where you're just, you've been sick and tired of rugby, but somehow you can't slip it. You're trying desperately to not play the thing.
Yeah.
You get deemed ineligible, but still you're hanging on.
Short answer is 1 or 2 teams reached out to me to play in that league. I remember New Orleans are really pushing me to sign for them. And I was just like, no. And they're putting together a good package for me. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm not getting back into this. So I was like, I'm done with this. And then San Diego called. I thought to myself, if I'm going to hate life, I'd be a bit soft about it. San Diego's not a bad place to do it. So I said, I'll give it one last crack. Truly, that was part of my thing. I was like, you know what? I'll give it one last crack. Worst case scenario, I get to live in San Diego and, do that for a season. So that was my decision-making process.
Okay, so how did they go then? And I know you were captain of the team at one point. I mean, it's the first professional rugby team that's been in San Diego as well, right?
Yeah, it was well done, honestly, because it was all privately owned, so they all came from lads with big funding, so they actually pumped good resources into it. So it was for me, the facilities, we used to train in a place called Exos, where all of the NFL free agent players preparing for the combine in Indianapolis randomly, and I never thought of that. Again, I used to train there.
Again, you're more like football keeps them being thrown at you, and you continue to go play rugby.
Yeah,
you kind of hate but don't hate.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but the opportunity, man. So I ended up doing that in San Diego. Had a great time. Did I have a great time? I enjoyed it. Didn't necessarily love all the rugby again, but it was going well. I didn't fall in love with it again. Didn't fall in love with it, but you
did have to play against Bastero though.
Yeah,
so can't be fun getting run over by him.
Yeah, that's part of the job, I suppose. Just in head and spokes.
And so then I guess maybe heading back towards something a bit more Irish, more of your legacy, you find yourself in Boston with the Free Jacks. So how did that kind of come about, and how did you enjoy your time over there? Like, obviously you probably felt like you're a little bit closer to home, think there was kind of more opportunities there for you outside of rugby as well. And you had some coaching opportunities there.
Yeah, that's exactly why I chose Boston. Well, the biggest reason I chose Boston was I thought I was going to make the 2019 World Cup because I was going to become eligible to play for America.
Then you still don't like rugby at this point and are trying to get out of it, but are kept being offered more and more jobs, including an international cap.
Yeah, so World Rugby were going to deem me ineligible to represent in the 2019 World Cup. So I said, if I'm not going to make that World Cup, I'm going to go to Boston, be closer to home, get to coach, which I loved coaching. I didn't love rugby, but loved coaching rugby. I knew that. So wasn't eligible. So I said, okay, I'm going to start afresh here, go to Boston and be part of like the pioneering element of pioneering part of that. Went over there, loved it. And then pretty quickly I became eligible to represent America, which then was a bit of a weird one because I now joined a team that wasn't playing any games. So we only had 4 preseason games and that was it. So
this is a brand new team. Boston Free Jacks.
New England Free Jacks.
Gotcha.
So I joined them. I was captain there, fly half, so I got to have a lot of influence. I just done a sports management degree. At this point, I was graduated, so I got to have say in kind of off the field operations. So got to see how like the business of sport worked, especially the sponsorship, and obviously that's an area I'm getting back into with this. But yeah, doing that, loving coaching, playing's all right, and then caps. They then become eligible to play for America. I was sitting in a class in St. Louis, Missouri. The USA team had just played Georgia. They were ranked 12th in the world at the time, about to go play Ireland. And my coach, the backs coach, called me. He's like, "How far are you from the airport?" And I was like, "Whatever, an hour." And he's like, "Well, we're going to fly into Dublin tonight." And I was like, "What's the crack?" And he's like, "Well, MURR Rugby's based in Dublin. So if we get you into Dublin, we can get your paperwork done to become eligible." So my first time with the USA team was when the lads played Ireland. So I remember driving to the Aviva and like on the bus with the USA blazer on and for the anthem and stuff like that. And I knew some of the lads in the Irish team, and no one knew I was coming. I didn't know I was coming 2 days before that. And all of a sudden I was walking around the pitch with the USA blazer on, and I was kind of like,
did they know you were there?
When you saw me on the pitch, they did, but like no one knew. It was random.
Wow.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
What a moment. And so you didn't end up playing that game though?
No, I wasn't eligible.
You had to be eligible, so you got the paperwork done. And so did you end up getting a few caps for the Eagles, the USA Eagles?
Yeah, I did. It was, first tour was down around South America, like Chile, Uruguay. So we just beaten Scotland, and then I became eligible after that. So they're ranked 12th in the world. They're an all-time high for the USA. I beaten Scotland, a good like Finn Russell, Stuart Hogg with the lads all playing.
Wow.
Yeah, like we're a good team. Got some caps there.
And you're playing 10, 12, full back?
10. Yeah, well, I was coming off the bench at 10 because the guy AJ McGinty, who's honestly like he plays for Bristol at the minute, was in Sale.
Another Irish guy. We're everywhere. He's nowhere near his level. But anyway, I got some caps, come off the bench, got to score a try, one of my first touches, banged over the sideline conversion, was on the pitch, whatever, like 3 minutes, 7 points, and I was like, not a bad gig. I wasn't loving it actually though. Hey, this rugby thing, actually, I'm actually all right at it. Despite me trying to run away from it as much as I can, I just scored like 7 points.
Yeah.
An international game.
But yeah, anyway.
That must have been a massively proud moment, obviously, play international rugby, coming from a kid who's went to an academy at 15 and kind of went through all these struggles, eating dry rice and dry leaves for some reason outside a farmhouse in Italy to going to play, international rugby with the 12th best team in the world.
Yeah. More random than anything. Real random. Obviously, didn't grow up looking to play for America, but cool that I have it on my CV. But that tour, I guess it was in the Six Nations window or equivalent to Six Nations.
Yep.
So we played after the last game on tour for like 6 weeks because America, you don't go home at the end of the tour or between games because it's America. It's huge. So at the end of those 6 weeks, that 6 week tour, just 7 weeks probably because of the bye week. To be honest, it was a bit just kind of like I wasn't loving it. At that point, it was a job. You obviously get an extra payment because you're playing for the national team. You're getting match bonuses, win fees, blah blah blah. So it was doing that for me, but I wasn't loving the game still at that point.
And that kind of bleeds us into, I guess, COVID. And I think COVID changed everyone in certain ways. I think some people had a really, really tough time with it. The majority of people had really, really tough times. Other people took advantages of it. Other people went in different directions. Some people worked from home. For some reason, Tadhg Leader, you did not think to work from home. You did something totally different. during COVID.
Yeah.
That leads me to a conversation I had over probably one of the best mass mam curries I've ever had. I was sitting down and we had discussed through a mutual friend about a possible phone call conversation, and I just ordered some food and I got a call from Tadhg Leader, and it's the first time I talked to you.
Yeah. And I'm like, what's the crack with this American football thing? Because, man, I didn't have a notion. Did you have a notion at the time? You guided me. So you could put me in the right direction. In fairness to you,
at the time,
I
had an idea. I kind of went. I'd been down a certain route. At that point, I'd gone to a bunch of open tryouts at CFL teams. I'd kind of tried a bunch of things. I had kind of pushed myself in certain ways. I knew who knew what. I knew which coaches were the best. I knew a certain avenue to kind of squeeze yourself into these good windows. One of them kind of being Coach Honours Combine, which I think I told you on the phone at the time.
Yeah.
So little did I know that conversation would lead to you and I both going out to San Diego again to see the legend himself, John Carney.
Yeah, that was class. Used the word random a few times, but that was just one of those moments where I remember doing a few kicking sessions in Boston where there was a coach there, Brendan Cattle, sound man, who's still a good friend to this day. And he just said, hey, you have a good kick. You maybe explore this. That led to that phone call. And yeah, I remember just kind of going out to John for a trial, and I just remember like not having a clue what was going on, but saying, let's just throw myself in and see what the crack is with this.
Yeah, you said you were going to stay out there for 2 weeks. You stayed out there for 4 months.
Yeah.
And I think, so the pathway you went down that I think I was suggesting to you was, take a look at this guy to have a look at you, John Carney, 5th highest point scorer of all time, 23 years in the NFL, bit of a legend. And I think I said, if he thinks you're somewhere halfway decent, then you can go down these other routes and you can go to these open tryouts. One of them obviously being the big one at Honours Combine. So, and obviously as well, when you're in San Diego, you get to kick and compete against some of the best guys there. So you kind of know where you are in terms of how good you are. So how did you kind of find that experience? Because I know you tried to change techniques a couple of times under some good advice, under some bad advice, and then,
Yeah, the experience overall was just, I said, give this a crack. If it works, I'm jumping into it. 28 at the time. If it doesn't, I have a job back in Boston. I'll probably do another season or two and then just move on with life. And be a coach though. At that point, I was going to be a coach, rugby coach. I always knew that. I was still coaching. So that was kind of my alternative. But kicked for those couple of weeks, sat John down, said, what's it like, am I any good? Am I wasting my time? What's your feedback? And then John, I remember, said something basically like, I've seen you kick multiple NFL kind of quality kicks this week with very little experience or exposure. Like, that's exciting. If I was you, I'd be excited about giving this a go. And I was like, all right, Jesus, I guess I'm in. So to call my team in Boston, who I just signed, 2-year deal with the year prior, and said, lads, I'm not coming back. I'm going to kick American footballs.
And during COVID too, where teams were kind of not sure where they were going to be, so maybe a little bit easier to have that phone call during that period as well. And then I think the opportunities that popped up for you after that was the Spring League, which was basically an unpaid league that had popped up in the US, but it was technically professional football because they paid for flights, expenses, etc. You got a kick out of the Colt Stadium. And you also played football in Europe after that. But in terms of like you learning your networking skills, like just give us an idea of how hard that is. Because I say, you decided to go play in spring football. Everyone tried to go play in that spring football league. So how did you leverage that?
Oh man, I had to get very comfortable with rejection and being told, either being ignored or being told no over this next period of my life. Because like playing in that league, for example, I had to tell that, because obviously I, no game tape, but just me in shorts and t-shirt in San Diego, swinging the leg. It's not, it's something, but it's not, everyone else has a college career or a pro career that they're leaning on. So to get in that league, man, I had to try and get creative. I had to tell them that, if you bring me in, you're going to get a lot more Irish viewers. It's going to grow your league in different parts of the world. The American Irish community, the rugby community are all going to get behind it. Like, if you should really kind of get me on board. So it's like being an agent pitching myself. Mm-hmm. And besides my mum and dad, who's staying up to watch a spring league at 2 or 3 in the morning in Ireland. But they said, all right. So that's how I got in that first league. I had to leverage anything and everything, because if I didn't, there's dead in the water.
Yeah, and
no other opportunity.
And you found yourself in there. I think it was a quite a positive experience because now all of a sudden you had game tape, you had pro game tape, which is kind of like, it's like your little golden ticket sometimes. And even like established free agents that we know very, very well that don't have game tape from like 2 years ago, they're crying out for any type of opportunity to get it. So what does Tadhg Leader do with this newfound game tape? He goes and he plays.
Moves to Poland. He packs his bag and moves to Poland. Yeah, that was that experience was good. Second game, I got to be one of the 3 captains, which is gas. I didn't even know what the hell that meant. And like walking out for handshakes and flicking coins, and I just I wasn't a huge fan of American football, by the way. So I love kicking, but I didn't know much about American football. I just remember like going through all this, was a bit mad, and then unfortunately got other ankle, got a bad injury there. So I spent the next 3 games kicking on my right foot, and I couldn't really plant. It was very awkward. This was footage out there. But I did enough to not get cut, which is time just keep it out above water. And then I was like, what's next? I was hoping to get to the CFL, talking to some teams there, and they're like, yeah, you'd look good. We'd like more exposure. So then the European Football League had just started. I didn't think I was going to do it. And then literally a team from Poland called me and said, hey, we're going to make a push for the playoffs. We need a high-level kicker, trying to give it a crack. And negotiated a peanuts contract for a couple of days, and off I went, and turned out to be a class experience. And
what city was that in?
Wrocław in Poland. Most of the games in Germany. Yeah, I was on the border, so we're usually in Germany for most of the games. Germans love it. I heard the first game turning up, and I heard people shouting "Leader, leader," maybe not big, maybe 3,000-4,000, and they're shouting "Leader, leader," and I was like, Jesus, who's like, someone knows me here.
3,000-4,000 is a lot more than the Spring League, though.
Oh, the Spring League was COVID. It was in an empty stadium, empty. Yeah. So I remember then turning, I was like, oh, who knows? Like, who's here? And then turning around, and some German fella just kind of like telling me I'm shy and giving me the little finger. And then I was like, sure, my name's on the back of the jersey. Because in the Spring League, obviously there's no one to call you because there's no one in the stands. So I remember being, okay. So I learned I got used to that, but that was, I remember, a funny one.
So you got grounded. Pretty quickly, yeah. In German.
Yeah, they're in English, in fairness. I understood the hand gesture as well.
Respect. Okay, good. All right, good for them. All right, so you're playing there. Now, that experience thing was actually kind of very fulfilling in the end because you got so much pro footage. You punted and you kicked.
Yeah.
And so kind of coming out of that season ended, I believe, in September or October 2021.
September, yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
And so where do you go then? You're like, okay, actually pretty handy at this. Ankles not that handy, but we can deal with that.
Right.
So then where's the final push then for Tadhg Leader?
Thankfully, some of the CFL teams are showing interest in that league. I managed to put together good tape, got some 50-yarders, banging from deep, field goals, deep punts or big punts, and then I moved to Spain to train with Mr. Lee MURR Media. I went out there for a couple of months just training, kicking in random Spanish pitches in these little the islands down there, the Canaries. A little bit warm weather training camp. What I didn't foresee is that it's very windy. So that wasn't the smartest move in the world, but it was a good crack. Got fitter, got stronger. And then the Tiger Cats called me, Hamilton, to give me a bit of an update as to what they're thinking about me. So I had the notepad out to see kind of what they're looking at, where I stand.
Hamilton Tiger Cats are like a very well-established team with a longevity of success in the Canadian Football League, in the CFL.
Yeah.
Professional league, one of the longest standing professional football leagues in the world, basically.
Yeah, that was a huge opportunity, and I wanted to get kind of see where I am with the depth chart. I was talking to the teams, and then the GM just said, hey, we're going to sign you. And I was not expecting that. So then I was just kind of like, oh, wow, like this is happening. Was just thrilled, a little bit surprised. But also I was kind of like, well, actually, you know what? Like I've learned, I've struggled, I've adapted. Bloody went to Poland. Like give me, like, I feel like I just ready and deserving of this next opportunity.
Okay, so I remember you calling me and you're on your way over and you're like, I'm not 100% sure if I have anywhere to stay. So if I am stuck, is there any chance, I could stay there? Because I'm only there for a week and then I'm down to Hamilton for training camp. And I remember it kind of being a surreal moment because you and I were training for that week and you're prepping yourself for this massive opportunity. So you did go into Hamilton. I think you had a great success.
Yeah.
So how did that go kind of in the end?
In the end, pro football sat down and told, hey, you need more experience. We're going to go ahead and release you today.
Yeah. And that's on top of hitting a game winner from 36 yards out, which is your only field goal opportunity. So you're 1 from 1 from there.
Yeah.
I think you went 91% in 93% in training camp. So the highest percentage out of 4 kickers that were there. And then they come back to you and they say, oh, you just need a bit more exposure, which they had access to you. And so then at that point, I think it opens up to what you kind of came to with leader kicking is like, this is a really hard place to get into. This is really, really difficult. But what I'm really good at and what I love is coaching. Is that kind of what you?
That's when leader kicking. It was already it was already planted in my head. But at that point, I was like, I can hand on heart couldn't have done anything more in terms of pursuing the CFL route, the NFL route. I went in, I performed. I was just comfortable. I was like, I left no stone unturned, and I performed. No regrets, genuinely no regrets. So I was like, if I'm just going to keep banging my head against this wall of no exposure, no experience, blah, 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 so be it. Time to go home and create a pathway for lads to get it.
And I think the one thing that you and I have kind of both said several times, like it's obviously not an easy pursuit. Yeah. It's a difficult pursuit. It's not a cheap pursuit either. So what's one of the things you kind of set up with leader kicking in mind that may be able to like help kind of alleviate some of those issues? I think one of them is kind of getting, you're getting people into the right pathway. So like getting a college guy in this way or getting these pro elite GA athletes through the IPP. So you're putting them through legit things. So you're not performing really well in front of someone. And then they're saying something like, oh, well, you just need more exposure. Yeah. But then also like, what have you done to kind of alleviate some of the pressures of like the payment and the access and the travel for some of these athletes?
Yeah, that was huge, man. The cost element of doing that was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So I remember thinking like Irish people aren't necessarily used of paying a whole lot for sports, or GAA is free or pretty cheap. You join your club for £100, I assume. Same in rugby.
One tryout would cost you $600.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
And you'd get to kick out 7 balls.
Yeah. Or else you do a session with the coach for like $1,200.
Yeah.
As we know.
Yeah. And coach is $1,200.
Yeah. So I was like, well, look,
for 4 hours of coaching.
4 hours banging balls in Arizona. So then I was like, I always knew that Irish people aren't going to do that. And there's other programs around the world that, and fair enough, they do a good job, but there's obviously a high level of cost. But they can get the reward in the back end of it 100%. But I didn't, just thinking in the Irish market, I thought, you know what, would it not be much, much better if I could create a program where the financial barriers are removed? So like, there's so many good kids that deserve an opportunity that maybe can't get them because there is financial barriers, different social, economic barriers in the way. So my thing was like, well, if I can remove them up front and just create genuine opportunity for lads, like how class would that be? How impactful would that be? So that was the plan. That was the idea. And then that's why you're sitting with Delta on your chest. And, Elvery's have been unbelievable. Irish-American partnership. And there's going to be a lot more coming in the next couple of weeks and months. So thanks to support from all these people, it meant now that, anyone's welcome to give this a crack. So I'm really proud of that, to be honest with you. That's one of the proudest things I'd say that out of what we've done to date, the accessibility for all. I love that.
And I'm sure a lot of the athletes that, we've had here and on Enter the Arena and everything else, and the ones that were going to happen in the future and the ones that are going to be leader kicking, kind of thank you for that as well, like, tenfold. But it's an amazing story from Connemara to Connacht to, a weird farm serving dry leaves in Italy to San Diego to Boston to St. Louis to Hamilton, just outside Toronto, to Poland, to Germany, back again.
A bit of Spain in between there at some point.
Spain at some point, back, and now you're in Galway, now you're at the hub, and now you're in leader kicking, and we're about to find out how these, 3 or 4 Irish stars perform in the NFL Combine for the first time. Like, how excited are you, just as the leader and owner of leader kicking? And I guess like more so like how are you feeling about it? Like, but how proud are you of what you've actually done?
Yeah.
Is there a sense of pride yet? I know you haven't had a whole time to reflect, but like, come on.
Sometimes, but as I said, not really. My girlfriend goes out to me. She's like, you need to really just like stop and press pause every once in a while. Yeah, there is pride, but there's like pure awareness of how bloody big this can be and how impactful this can be and how it needs to keep going. So that's probably more so the emotion than anything, like to keep the bloody foot in the pedal. So that's what we're trying to do. So, yeah, I know it's been cool, but there's like, honestly, there's so much more to go with this. It's so much bigger to get, so many more lives to impact. And that's what makes me more excited without a doubt than kind of what's gone. proud of the lads as well though, to see what they've done, and how good they've done and how they've adapted and how they've helped, build this along. So yeah, I am proud of it, but also more so just looking with a sense of excitement to the future and see what the lads can do.
Speaking of, last question, in 5 years' time, how many Irish players are playing in the NFL?
Oh, 5 years' time in the NFL? Let's be honest, yeah, the world's biggest sporting league, only 32 teams.
Not for long is what it stands for.
And for NFL, not for long, exactly. If we had like 2 to 4, I mean, you already have Dan Whelan and they're doing a good job. You have like James McCourt, he's been knocking around, he's a talented lad. And you have these 4 Irish guys going through the pathway. 2 of them made it to the world's biggest league now.
And that's just phenomenal. This year. I'm talking about in 5 years.
If that's okay, we'll go for 6 then. No, I think like if realistically actively in the NFL, if there's 4 Irish guys on a roster, like that would be phenomenal. There's only 32 jobs, but it's like competitive, like hyper competitive. But I think more so the impact's going to be in the college game, like lads getting to go to college and experience that at all the levels. That is where I see us making real big impact and like real life changing impact. The NFL is class and it's going to be huge, but that's a pro game, that's a pro league, and it's great. And I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to diminish that at all, but I think the college game is where it gets me buzzing to think like, just 2-3 days ago, a young fella from Dublin that didn't have much academic prospects, wasn't going to go to college because his leaving cert wasn't great. He just signed for a JUCO college like 2-3 nights ago. That was really exciting. And like, that's where I hope, that just keeps moving and keeps trucking along.
And that's your daily life. And, those sort of things happen all the time to you now. And on that note, thank you so much for coming on Enter the Arena. I know I was kind of jabbing you to get on because I thought your story was the one that kind of tied together everything. It's kind of the connective tissue of the body, that kind of gave you a full look at everything. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you listeners for tuning in and everything. Please give 5 stars, please comment, please share with your friends. Obviously any kickers and punters going on, visit Tadhg Leader on social media, Leader Kicking, visit their website. And I can't wait to have more guests on Enter the Arena, a Leader Kicking podcast. See you next time.